So today we're starting a new series on grafting mangoes, and this is actually episode 0. So before you even get around to thinking about grafting, there are some things that you need to do. One thing is you need something to graft onto, and if you happen to have a mango tree in your yard and either hasn't fruited yet or you don't particularly like the fruit that is on it, then you can cut that back, and that can be a great rootstock for whatever you graft onto. If you graft onto a fairly old tree, everything that you put on that grows very quickly. This is actually, that was a fairly young tree that I cut back just a little more than a year ago, I think. And then when the shoots started coming out, I grafted onto the shoots, and so now that is all Carla. But the other thing that is the most common way of grafting is to graft onto mango seedlings. And so here's some rootstock that I've been working on for a while. Planted the seeds a while ago, and now they're at a really nice stage to graft onto. So before you get scions, you definitely need to have a destination. So either seedling mangoes or a mango tree, existing mango tree that you cut back and then graft onto the sprouts. There was one person from Washington State who wanted to order some mango scions. And that was a little unusual, so I asked why, and she wanted to graft it onto an apple tree. This does not work. You need a mango seedling or a mango tree to graft onto. So there's step number 1. The second thing is you want to have the materials that you need to actually do the grafting. There are a lot of alternatives out there. For me, I use buddy tape. This looks like a small roll, but actually it has like more than 850 pieces in here. I usually use 2 pieces for each graft that I do. The buddy tape comes in sections or not perforated kinds, but that is one section, and that will wrap around a scion like that. It stretches 8 times its its original size, so that prevents moisture loss. It works out very well for me. But there are a lot of other options, so you don't need to buy buddy tape, but do be aware that it's seems fairly expensive, but it goes a long way. Another thing is you need to have some sort of instrument to actually carve the scions. And I do not like to sharpen knives, and so I use razor blades. Razor blades are really sharp, and I can use one for quite a few grafts. They stay sharp for a while, and then I'll put it onto the next use once it doesn't have that real nice carving ability. But there are, that's an option. There's other types of razor knives that are that work well. Also, of course, grafting knives. And grafting knives really work nicely, but I like to use them when somebody else is sharpening them. So, this is something, with these little razor blades, I can put one in my pocket. I can put like the remains of a roll of buddy tape in my pocket. And the last thing that I use is these elastic strips, and they come in a lot of sizes. Right now I've been using 5-inch ones. They come 5 inches, 6 inches, 8 inches. But let's see, I guess this must be the 5-inch one. Yep. And this particular one is 5 inches by 1/4 inch and 16 1/1000ths in as far as the thickness. So it's 1/4 inch wide, and then the thickness is 0.016. So anyway, that works well. You can use just about anything, though. You want to make sure you have something to help the scion really heal into the seedling or the sprout of the tree that you're grafting onto. Another thing that is very important to have is a pair of pruners. When you go to graft, you will need to, sometimes cut the seedling or the, huge rootstock back a little bit. For instance, you can see very new leaves on this particular seedling. Those definitely have to come off. A lot of times they're so new that they'll just break off, and this one did. But if it's a little bit older than that, you just use your pruners, cut them off. So that is it for what to do before grafting as far as the materials that you need. But there's something else that you could do that really will help once you get into a serious grafting situation. And that thing is to practice on wood that is really not something that you're going to graft with. It's just a matter of trying to get used to making the cuts on wood. So I'm just going to go and grab a branch or two and show you what I mean. So these branches were really too low. Once they had fruit on them, the fruit would be on the ground. So it's a good thing to cut. So a lot of this wood, I'm just going to use this bigger piece, I guess, would be the same wood at the same stage as you would use for instance, a top cleft graft or side veneer graft. And so the idea is, like on this particular piece, you can just take off the leaves that, when we prepare scions, by the time they're ready, all the leaves drop off. But you don't need to do that for practice. That would be like a practice scion. And so what you can do, oops, wrong little jar, is you take whatever you think you're going to use for carving. In my case, I use these razor blades. And you want to just, for instance, if I were going to use this for a top cleft graft, that means that you would need to make a V out of this at the bottom of the scion. So you want to just practice that. And of course, whatever you use for cutting, whatever sharp instrument it is, be careful, because everything that cuts wood cuts your skin much easier. It goes, right through the skin, and I tend to, a lot of times, will just pull the scion away from me. There's a little bit of recoil when the tension is released. If you do move this hand, sometimes the cut can be like a little bit wavy, but you just have to practice it. it's good just to get the feel of what it's like to use a sharp instrument to make a specific cut in a scion or would-be scion. So you want to have the cut very flat. You don't want to have waves in it. You don't want to have like a bump in the middle longitudinally where, you know, the green part is on a different plane than the middle part. You want to have a very flat cut on both sides, and then coming down at the very tip to what, you know, you can imagine one cell thickness would be. So when you do that, and, you know, sometimes, you know, if you haven't been doing this like 1,000 times, it can be difficult to get to a perfect cut. But that would be the top, you know, for top cleft graft. So the next type of graft that you could practice carving a scion for is a side veneer graft. And for that, I usually look for a slight curve to the scion. So it seems like there's a, you know, slight curve that way. And so basically you want to make a very flat cut on the top side of that curve. These little bumps where the leaves were attached, you definitely need to make sure those don't stick out. But as you slide the blade, you know, whatever kind of blade you use, down the scion, you can feel that there's like an easy place to slide, and that's just under the green part. And so you want to definitely slide it where it's easy. Get a nice flat cut. You don't go all the way to the middle. You know, I've seen some people, you know, like practically going more than halfway into the scion, the depth of the scion. And that is not appropriate for this particular kind of graft. And so then on the other side, you just make a notch. And it's a fairly small one, but you want to just practice this kind of thing. You know, practice on some trimmings from mango trees that you are not interested in grafting at that moment, just to get the feel of how to, you know, to do it. You know, like how it feels, because it, you know, practice does help a lot. So as you probably can see, that's like very, very skinny at the point. So that would be, you know, like what you would want to practice for. And so, as I say, just take stuff, you know, trimmings, low trimmings from trees or stuff that you are just going to throw away, and practice on it. For scions that I use, almost always they are green, but not very flexible. So if you find wood on a mango tree that's like that, you know, like ideally it's about the width of a pencil, but it really depends on the variety of the tree. Sometimes the trees make very skinny branches, young branches, and other trees make like monster branches. So this is, you know, most typical, and just practice. And so get, you know, your materials that you'll need to graft. You know, hopefully that includes some mango seedlings at the right stage, or a tree that you're wanting to top work. You cut back and then wait for the new growth to be at a good point to graft onto. You want to have it be green, you know, not in the real young stage, but also, like, you can have it be slightly flexible for top working, but you don't want it to be too young. So materials plus something to graft onto before you even start grafting for real.